Mark Rogers TV on Championship Week, and we get our betting odds and lines and angles from Peter Loshak from Sports Book Review. Peter, thanks so much for joining us as always. This has been a mainstay all season, so it's good to see you.
Oh, I'm very happy to be back.
All right, let's talk at the ACC Championship game where Clemson appears to be a shoe-in for the college football playoff. Possibly could get in even with a loss here. North Carolina, a mystery team all season, playing, depending on your angle, possibly their first-ranked team. So how are you looking at this game at this point?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. There hasn't been any sharp action as yet on this game, which I think is pretty telling. And Clemson's kind of a tricky team because they've had such great success, but they actually don't have great turnover numbers. And usually those are very correlated. So the fact that they've done so well with poor turnover numbers is, in one sense, a sign that they're actually better than what their record has been so far. They're also they seem like the kind of team that plays down to their level of competition, but then in the big games can cover. They've lost 4 straight against the spread, 3-7 out of their last 10 ATS. So it's not very inspiring. And North Carolina's been a great team. ATS, of course, they've covered 8 out of their last 11, and their 3 losses were very forgivable. So this one, I'm still feeling my way out on. Obviously, turnovers are going to be huge. No sharp action as yet, and my sense is that this might be one of those games where no sharp action comes in. So I haven't heard anything, interesting or pointing me in one direction as yet, and I certainly have no personal opinion as yet either. So still feeling it out.
Peter, we've got an SEC championship game where we may have the 6th or 7th best team in the conference playing the best team in the conference. Yeah. Ever since Urban Meyer left Florida, the SEC Eastern Division, lagging behind the West, has lost a number of consecutive championship games going back to 2008. And here we have another seeming mismatch with Florida scoring 2 points last week against Florida State, going up against Alabama.
My sense here is that it's Alabama or nothing. I have talked to a few professional gamblers or one actually, who says he likes Florida. The betting action on this, obviously, the public is on Alabama, but they're not on Alabama at a massive ratio. It's about 3-1 or 2-1, and sorry, someone's just waving at me, and there was some pseudo sharp action on Alabama at about 16.5. Not like the top marquee sharp action that makes me think it's a great play. I would lean Alabama. I would lean under. Obviously, those feel a little bit anti-correlated, but that's the way I'm leaning. I haven't bet either one. I'd lean Alabama a little bit more because Florida's defense is obviously legit. I don't think Florida's going to be able to score on Alabama at all. So maybe the Florida team total under might be worth a shot, although that'd be a squeeze. I'd say a shot with the under at 40 would probably be the best way to go.
Peter, the most clear-cut game of the weekend in regards to ramification, basically winner-take-all, Iowa, Michigan State, Ohio State, according to Vegas, the best team in the Big Ten, would have the advantage over these two teams by a touchdown to 9.5 points, something in that range. But it's Iowa, it's Michigan State for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are sort of saying that Iowa is not quite as good as their record indicates. Obviously, Michigan State is playing better than they have all season, and I think that the general consensus that Michigan State is a good play here is with the way the public's leaning, and that's the way I would lean as well. There's a lot of advanced statistics that I've seen from some places that I really trust that indicate that Michigan State has a better chance of winning than the market is giving them credit for. So might be a close game. You might want to take a shot with Michigan State on the money line. That could wind up being a little bit of getting a little bit of security. But my lean is definitely to Michigan State, either on the money line or -3.5.
The only one of the Power 5 matchups for a conference championship game that turns out to be a rematch is USC's taking on Stanford, where the Cardinal rebounded from that loss to Northwestern early to go to the Coliseum, beat up on USC at that point. Trojans kind of backdoor in late in the season in the Pac-12 championship game, although they had to win the head-to-head and looked very impressive against UCLA. So we've got Stanford, who appears to be the much more balanced team overall offense and defensively against a USC team that's a bit hot and cold.
Yeah, well, USC is obviously playing a lot better of late, although they haven't been covering. The sharper action that has come out of this game did come in on USC at 4.5. When I first analyze this game, I started to think that the under actually might be a good play for us. USC is running a lot more. They've turned themselves into a power running team since Helton took over. And I just found out that that multiple sharp accounts came in on the under, and I believe that 61 is still available. I'm not sure what the total is right now, but it was definitely interesting that my initial sort of like, it felt counterintuitive because of both these teams have been so high scoring recently, but the under is probably the best way to go on this one. It does make sense. It's going to be a competitive game. Stanford, does what they do, and USC has become more of a Stanford-like team recently. And so when they match up, we might see a much lower scoring game than the market is giving credit for it. Sharp action has come in on the under, so that's the play I would recommend for sure.
Peter, outside the Power 5 conference structure for the championship games, I'd like to hit on two other conference games. One that's a traditional one in terms of pushing the Power 5 in terms of being that sixth conference, and that would be the Mountain West. But then we also have the American Athletic Conference that is clearly the better of the group of five this season, with four legitimate teams in Navy and Memphis. But emerging in the championship game, we've got Temple, who beat Penn State, took Notre Dame to the limit, and a Houston team that has looked pretty impressive, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just touched on the important games, which is that when Temple has stepped up in class, when they've been an underdog, they've actually way outperformed their spreads. They're 5-0 against spread as an underdog this year, and they covered those spreads by big margins, played very competitively with those teams, or won outright. I'm definitely on Houston here. I think the line is a little bit inflated because Greg Ward had obviously a phenomenal game last week, which it was just awesome. Not likely that he's going to be able to repeat that again. And if he doesn't, I think that Temple's defense is going to give him problems. Temple's defense kind of had a 2-game stretch where they seemed a little bit worn out after the Notre Dame game, but then they bounced back in recent weeks. And I think Greg Ward comes back down to earth. Should be a competitive game. Definitely like it, Temple plus the points here at whatever you can get, 6, 6.5, 5.5, whatever it is.
And finally, Peter, we've got the Mountain West, where we traditionally have somebody break free as a dominant team out of the group of five out of this conference, but it's a more balanced conference this year. A lot of 8-4 type teams, and we've got Air Force emerging along with San Diego State in the championship game.
Yeah, and of course, San Diego State's going to be starting a new quarterback here. The backup is going to be starting. I think the key to this game is that San Diego, obviously, Air Force stronger on offense. San Diego State, their strength is defense. And San Diego State in recent years has really been able to hold down Air Force. They've covered in general. San Diego State has covered the last 6 times they've played Air Force. And I think more importantly to me is that they've held down their defense, their offense really well in recent years, and the games have gone under. I think the last 3 have all gone under, and I think that's probably the best way to play this one. It opened at about 51, now it's down to 50. That was some sharp action that came in on that one, and that's what I think is probably the best way. There's just too many uncertainties with the quarterback with San Diego State to take them at -6.5, which is where they are now, and I think that the under is probably a better way to go, and that is how the games have gone in recent years between these two teams, under 50.
Peter, I got to say, people love this segment. I get comments on it all the time. They hear me blab about college football all week, but then they hear you with the money connection to the wallet, so it means a whole lot more. So we appreciate you coming on each and every week. Peter Loshak from Sportsbook Review. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks so much. It's rare to hear nice words nowadays in 2015. I really appreciate it.
Good stuff, Peter. You take care. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks. You too.